Good evening, all. Glad to have you joining us here a couple of minutes early, as usual, about a minute and a half early, sending out the notification on YouTube and Facebook, letting you know we're here for our Thursday broadcast called Let's Chat. So I'll give it about a minute or so. Hope all that had a wonderful week. If you're watching this back at some point, hope you are doing well also. Share this out. Get this in front of as many people as you can. This may seem like a kind of innocuous, if you will, broadcast subject, but stay with me. We may say something that proves beneficial to you, especially to those with graduating seniors and those who are truly considering and sincerely considering and contemplating going back to get more education, or even pursuing, education beyond a high school diploma, whatever it is that you've pursued in your lifetime. I went back to school at the age of, I'm actually probably uniquely, I just realized I'm probably uniquely qualified to talk about this subject, having gone back to school to get my bachelor's degree at 33, and of course got it, achieved it just before 35 years old. So I just realized, matter of fact, my son's mother, we were married at the time, and she actually was in her pursuit. She started just a little after I did, and so she got her bachelor's. I got mine officially in January 20. It should have been December, but the holidays, so I got it officially January of 20, whatever that was. Wow, my brain went completely blank. The year, 2010, and she got her bachelor's as a normal situation in, I believe, May of 2011 or 2011. So it's 9. Let's get on into this. You know me, I don't linger and sit around and wait for groups to gather. Again, for those who may be watching, glad to have you. If you're watching this back at some point, glad to have you join us. It's my hope that we say something that will get you thinking. Now, the real thrust of this month is really not about the particular subjects, but we will obviously talk about those subjects of education and engagement and pre. It's really about the idea of getting some counseling or advice. So let me first start with that. The for this month, and I'll probably say something a little bit each week, but I really want to drive home the idea, and I've been doing this type of stuff, really, of course, not in front of a camera, for almost 30 years. Just told somebody recently, and I'm not talking about mental health counseling. We've done broadcasts on that. Feel free to check us out on YouTube, and you can find that stuff. It was just no more than a few months ago, I do believe. But I'm talking about premarital advice or counseling, pre-education advice or counseling, pre-employment advice or counseling. And I really want to encourage that more of us consider getting advice. There's an old proverb, literally a proverb, says, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. In the multitude of advisors, there is safety. And so I really want to kind of take that idea and use these individual subjects over the next 4 weeks. I do believe we have 4 Thursdays this month, and encourage, no matter what the particular, so tonight we'll talk about education, to really encourage a consultation. That if you're not the one pursuing education, but it's your niece, your nephew, your grandchild, your child who is pursuing education, tonight being the education is the focus, that you really think about encouraging them, and maybe use this video, this broadcast, as a way to kind of get them thinking about it. Why am I saying this? Because the world is not as simple as the 1950s, the 1960s, 1970s when I was born. The world is not, and this is what, obviously, since I was born in the 70s, and I just said the 50s and the 60s, somebody told me this, and more than one somebody told me, you know, once upon a time you would go pursue an education, and that education was directly connected to a job. There was a time when you would be encouraged by people who, employers, let me just be more precise, because there was this thing, listen to me now, called middle class, right? Now, you know, I'm old enough to have children who are grown, even though my son is 12. And so there was a whole generation that has come since I've come of age, and technically almost 2 generations, considering I'm almost 50. And the reality of it is that because the middle class has all but disappeared, you don't have a direct link necessarily from education to jobs. Gabe, I thought this was about education. It is. The reason why I'm highly encouraging. So if you have a teenager who's 18 years old and in your home, and I understand that's an age where I've already looked at it, Mom, Dad, I got my plan, I know what I want to do. I get it. And if your child who is practically grown knows their course, not just in education, listen to me now, not just their educational course, but what they want that education to materialize into. And I'm going to give you a major question to ask them if you haven't already asked them in a moment. I want you to think about, and maybe you are the adult. Your kid has come of age. They've gone now. You got an empty nest, and you're thinking about what to do with yourself, and you feel like you're in a dead-end career or whatever the case may be, and you're thinking about, like I did at the age of 33 years of age, to go back to school and to pursue further education. But I want to make sure that we destroy any further notion, any lingering idea that it's an automatic education job. I think we have to start there. So here's some free education counseling. There are very few, and if you do the statistical analysis, I didn't do it, I apologize, a little bit busy with work. But statistics are showing us, which is why they're talking about trying to get student loans eradicated, because many people have pursued and achieved degrees, and I'll let you fill in the blanks on your degrees, and their degrees are not automatically turning into, like it did in the 50s, like it did in the 60s, like it did in the 70s, like it did in the 80s, when there were still white collar, a lot of white collar middle class jobs. Those are not there. And if you're telling me about being a YouTuber, you don't need a degree to be a YouTuber. Now, there are people who are making money through YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and all of that who have degrees, but it's not necessary. And some of the most popular YouTubers alive are young and uneducated. They have more charisma than they do intellect. That's not a knock, it's the truth. So then you have to understand, if we're just going to be honest, I really believe then we need to have free education counseling. Somebody, watch this, to ask the proverbial question. Or excuse me, let me change that word, not proverbial, to ask the penult question. The question that is, to me, the apex. And what do you intend to do with that education? Get your bachelor's, get your master's, get your PhD. Got a little song, tweedly, tweedly dee. That's great. I intend to pursue a master's, but if you say, Gabe, ask yourself the question, obviously I have. Now, I so happen to be 48 years of age, so if I pursue a master's degree, which is not uncommon for people in my age group because of the cost. We'll get to that in a minute. education has not decreased in its cost, but it is not necessarily turning over jobs. And the reason why middle class jobs are so important is because middle class jobs used to be able to be achieved by a bachelor's degree. Yeah. That's the 4-year degree after college, remember? Once upon a time, you could go and get a bachelor's degree, and while, let's say, your parents and the baby boomers, that would be my parents, young baby boomers, and if you push up a little bit more, let's go my parents' parents, who neither one of them had high education in terms of university or college. In fact, I do believe myself, my sister, my brother, and cousins of mine, in terms of my family on either side, are some of the more educated. And I'm not saying that as a disrespect, stay with me. It's just a fact in terms of going to university. My niece just accomplished a master's degree, and so she's a step above myself and my siblings, right? And we have college degrees as well. So there's a practicality to getting pre-education counseling. Are you catching me? You know me, I don't take a long time. I don't have no drum roll, please, here it is, 35 minutes in. No, I give it to you up front. See, one of the reasons why there's conversation, they're not saying it, but I think some of us are smart enough to figure this out. Why are they talking about student loans, debt being erased? Because there's no longer the middle class jobs like working for the county. Oh, there's still county jobs. But when they are annihilating these types of jobs, and then there are those who have been in those jobs for 20 and 30 years who don't want to leave those jobs, even if they don't like their job. See, when you have those kind of scenarios where I am 55, 60 years old, I don't like my job, but because I get good insurance, medical coverage, which is worth its weight in gold, I may only be still after all these years making $40,000 a year. Okay, that's a lot of money. Not if you've been on your job 30 years. No disrespect. The medical coverage is where the balance comes in. But now think about it. Once upon a time, there were tons of companies that were office jobs. There were tons of companies where you could move up and get promotions. I love promotions, Gabe. I love promotions. But now many of those companies have outsourced to other nations. Nike and others, Levi Strauss. And this was all happening in the what, late 90s, the late 80s, 90s, 2000s. Why? Because when you start talking about the middle class, white collar jobs and giving those people promotions and giving them weeks off. Gabe, I thought this was about education. Absolutely. I'm laying out for you why I firmly believe pre-education counseling is huge. Not just for your teen who's graduating from college, graduating from high school or graduating from college with a 4-year degree, but also for you and I who are of age, who have potentially grown grandkids, who are thinking about reinventing ourselves through education. Congratulations, by all means. But if you're going to school under the previous idea that that's going to turn into money, you might want to really turn this up a little louder and get honest with yourself and really think about it. Because unless you're in nursing, or unless you're in criminal justice, unless you're in the psychology field, and I, having been in some form of psychology for a minute now, can tell you there's not that many jobs where you are fortunate enough to, unless you walk in as a manager, as a supervisor, working double shifts every day. See, here's how they pay you. See, they'll give you the 30, 40,000 a year, but they'll work you like a slave. And I'm old enough to remember when those white collar middle class jobs, you can work your 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 or 7:30 to 4:30, and be off on the weekends, not carrying work home, etc., etc. I know teachers who have been in the business, but Gabe, teacher is a middle-class white-collar job, is it? Have you talked to teachers? Do you know that to be true? Now, when I went into the teaching profession for about 15 minutes, relatively speaking, yeah, I was paid a significant amount of money, but I was working for a $1 billion school district called Dallas Independent School District. And unless you're living in a place like Texas, hard to come by the salaries. Most of us, and I can say us until I became a teacher, don't really know what teachers make, even though it's publicly known. And if you really think about what it costs to live and to gain, here I am again, the education to become a teacher, and in particular, a master's degree. Now, I was a teacher as a bachelor's degree, but of course, I was going to have to pursue further education. And I'll be honest, one of the turnoffs was pursuing further education. Granted, I was already making, and I'll tell you, $50,000 a year. But Gabe, that's a lot of money. True. But to pursue the educational level that they wanted you to pursue once you got in, the student loans were going to eat my little money alive. Little money? Well, remember, I'm living in Dallas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The apartment I had at that time, 1-bedroom apartment, went from $730, something like that. It had jumped up, this is pre-pandemic, jumped up to $750 something. And that really wasn't an issue, obviously. But I was told by a friend who lives in the area, that same apartment now is running $1,000. They didn't add a room to that 1-bedroom apartment. It was a nice apartment, but worth $1,000 a month? My God, no. My God, no. So while I'm not suggesting that $50,000 a year is nothing, by all means, I would never suggest that. The fact is, most of those jobs don't exist anymore. Even if you walk in at 30, you put in 20 years, you leave out at 50. They just don't exist. And so when you're thinking about going back to school, I'm not here to discourage you. All I'm trying to do is encourage you to think about getting some pre-education counseling. To sit down with someone, and I'm not an education expert, but to sit down with people who know how to link your education to work. They are people who are trained to do that. Now, I didn't particularly need that because, again, psychology, sociology, criminology, any kind of medicine really are particular areas of education. You know, there's some employment of some nature there. There's some employment potentially, human services. There's some potential employment. However, I can say as a person with a degree in psychology, doesn't mean that there's a ton of jobs out there. And with the pandemic, oh my goodness, the level of competition is fierce to try to get a high level job. You really have to go higher and higher and higher, which means more student loans. When I mean high, I mean higher education, which means more student loans, which are through the roof, which is why I strongly suggest you get pre-education counseling. Because you go and, well, it's a master's degree. And again, if you just teach the next generation the same ideas that was taught to me and that was taught to my parents, yeah, education is where it's at. I even now catch myself saying that. I'm not suggesting something's wrong with education. Obviously, as a school teacher, I met an extraordinarily large number of educated people. Practically everybody I worked with was educated, obviously. The people I work with now, educated, social workers. You got to have a master's degree, plus 30 and all of this kind of thing. So I'm not knocking education. I told you I went back to school to get more education. I've been blessed to come across a job that pays me fairly well. But I can tell you now, unless the company thrives to the point where we make so much more money, they just give me a raise and give me raises to get me where I would love to be, I'm never going to get there unless, guess what? I go back and get more education. and merit with the education more money. And in my case, more money without more work. But that's not really the case, is it? Education is not the automatic pathway to the economic stability that we all once were told about. And depending on how old you were, it was drilled into your mind. I know whole families of people. And depending again on your education. A history degree, a master's in history, unless you're going to be a college professor. See, this is where you got to have, and even with your children who I know they're pre-grown, right? They're 18, 19, years old, and you can't tell me nothing now, and I'm going to get me an art major. I'm going to be an art major, and I'm going to work in a museum as a curator, or whatever the case may be. And I'm going to do art consulting. Okay. But they need some pre-education. They need somebody to sit them down. They won't maybe not listen to you, Mom. They may not listen to you, Dad. They may not listen to you, Grandma, Grandpa, but they need to sit down with somebody who can link them to realistically, truthistically, you know me, I'm not a realist, I'm a truthist, who can say, look, you want to be an art major? Yeah, I want to get my master's degree in art. By all means. Okay, that degree is going to cost you in student loans, unless you got a prize situation, I'll leave it at that. You're going to pay out $50,000 in student loans, and this is the kind of jobs that are for you. Now, let me speak to my Christian brothers and sisters real quick, because I can already hear you. God will make a way. The Lord will make a way somehow. Did you know that Joseph was a carpenter? Oh, listen to me. Listen to me. Don't turn me off. Don't turn me off. Stay with me. I don't think we know our Bible. Did you know Joseph was a carpenter? And did you know that a carpenter for a Jew was a low-class job? The Lord will make a way for you. You don't know your Bible. Did you know that Peter and several of Jesus' disciples were fishermen? And did you know that the Jews counted being, and I don't mean fishermen like going to get them a couple of fish. No, it is suggested that Peter owned a fleet of boats. He was a fisherman in the real sense of a business. Do you know that that was looked down on? Do you know that that was classified as a low-class job? The Lord will make a way. See, we're romanticizing our relationship with God. Let me talk to you a couple of more minutes. Stop. Because you have no biblical precedent for that. You're just saying the Lord will make a way because you want to do whatever you want to do. You want to pursue whatever you want to pursue. And yet, don't the scripture say, in all thy ways acknowledge him? It ain't God, look, this is what I want to do. And you say, you're going to give me the desires of my heart. So let me go get this art degree. Let me go get this history degree. Let me go spend $50,000 on student loans. And then I know you're just going to find a needle in a haystack for me. You already know where it is. So I can get this $60,000 a year job as a history major. And if somebody pop on here and say, Gabe, you don't know what you're talking about because I'm that person, you are the exception to the rule. Do your research. I got a history degree, and are you working in the history department? Well, I'm a history teacher. Well, of course, you're a teacher. Whether you're teaching history or math or science, that's a teaching job. Stay with me. But how many jobs beyond being a teacher are most degrees going to allow you or afford you to really be able to make the kind of middle class, white collar job money that really you need even in today's time to work one job? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it does exist. You can work one job and make enough money to survive. Unless, of course, you're greedy. Yeah, I said it. I said it. Forgot my water. So understand, ladies and gentlemen, That's why I'm here to encourage pre-education counseling. That you sit down with someone who can show you the educational and financial ropes, in particular because for generations, education was directly connected to financial security. There it is. All my life, I heard, get that education, because if you get that education, it will connect you to financial security. And for many people, I'm not sitting here suggesting that that has not proven to be true. But again, I know school teachers directly, call some of them friends, who will tell you that they are working other jobs, odd-end jobs, trying to make it. Now, I'm not suggesting that they're greedy. What I'm telling you is, once you get them student loans, and there are other bills that you acquire when you make a certain level of education, and of course you live a certain lifestyle. Part of pursuing that education and going into that particular type of work is to live a certain lifestyle, i.e. buying a home, etc., etc. I'm not saying that every teacher is buying a home, but when you see the money you make and the tax issues that you run into, unless you have children, oh, I'm talking good. I'm talking good. Unless you have children, oh my goodness, your little income gonna get taxed beyond belief. And so as a teacher and as a high-ranking official in terms of the police departments, when I found out how much the police officers make, I was amazed. Matter of fact, I was appalled, to be honest with you. I was absolutely appalled. Just 20-some years ago, when my former pastor was policing, he told me he made $23,000 a year. I was like, huh? 20 what? I know people who started teaching 20-some years ago. Guess what they were making? $20-some thousand, again, depending on where you live, $20-some thousand a year. And you got to get enough raises over time for that kind of job to pan out. Or it's no longer viable. And do you know a lot of police officers who have to take side jobs, run security and all this kind of thing, just to be able to make those ends meet? I know you're shocked up because you think a police officer's job is a white collar job. You think a teaching job is automatically white collar. No. 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 How about those in the social work field? How about those who are in those kinds? See, most of us, because we're under the impression that those jobs, because they might get to wear a button-down shirt and some khakis with some nice shoes, you know. They go to a nice office, you know. They have their own classroom. We just assume that they're between their education and their work location, their uniform, even in the military. Now, I can't corroborate this one in any way, but from what I've been told, GI Bill, okay, cool, but you ain't coming out the box making a bunch of money. And the simple fact is, because so many jobs, so many of the white collar middle class jobs are hard to find, just because you retire after a 20-year career in the military don't mean you coming out with bank. Doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that at all. Oh, you may have some great benefits, which is good. Again, worth its weight in gold. But you go in to get that GI Bill. Again, I'm old enough to remember. I remember my uncle. Yeah, man, nephew, going to the military, man. You want to get your education, get that GI Bill. I love him. He's with the Lord. But I know he didn't know. He didn't know. I didn't know. I'm fresh out of high school. I didn't know at the time that wasn't going to necessarily turn into automatically, you know, some fantastic, you know, easygoing job. But I've talked to enough people who are in and around my age who did go and get the GI Bills and all of that. If they didn't want to do 20 years, see what I'm saying? Are you hearing me now? 20 years. You got to have somebody help you chart your course, or your GI Bill might not mean much of anything. Again, what's the point of this broadcast tonight and over the next few weeks? To really incite, encourage, for others annoyed to death, for you to think twice. One of my favorite phrases is think it through. You didn't think that through. To really get you to stop for a moment. I know you already got you signed up. You know, you signed, sealed, and delivered. You got your college chosen. You're ready. Ready. I got, Gabe, 20 credits on it already. I just need to go and finish up. Yeah, then I can finally get out this job and I can go do this, that, and hey. I'm not here to discourage you. Knock it out the box. Just make sure you've done a real solid education to employment, if that's the intention. Now, if you're a person advanced in years, or you're doing well, whatever your age, and you just want to just be able to say, I got that arts degree and I got a master's degree in arts just because you did. Hey, and you don't even need to get a student loan to do it. Hey, knock that out. I'm not talking to you, clearly, because you're just doing it for the love of it. You just love art so much, you love music, great. Because you don't need a degree to do music. Clearly, some of the best artists in human history and American history were not educated in music in terms of classically. They just flat out could sing, flat out could play an instrument, and they wrote the book. I don't believe Michael Jackson went to school to learn music. I don't know if Prince did, though he could play 20-something instruments. There are some people who are just purely talented, right? So understand, I really think you need a cost analysis. What is it going to cost me to go and get this education? So now I've been talking about money for over 30 minutes, but let's talk about time. You don't just need pre-education counseling for the sake of money, financial aid, and student loans. You need to have a conversation for the sake of time, especially, and again, I'm uniquely qualified to talk about this in terms of my own experience. I so happened to have got married. I was already going to school when I got remarried to my son's mother. I had enrolled in school before I met her. So I was in the process. I was a good semester in before we actually physically got married. Okay. So I was in it with 5 to go. My son was born my last semester. The reality of it is, some of you, you're free and clear. Finance is not an issue, and your time, your kids are grown. Hey, you do your thing. I'm not talking to you. But some of you who are considering going back to school, man, but you don't really want to hear it, but I'm gonna say it. And hopefully you're willing to hear it from me. You're going to overwhelm yourself in terms of your time. You're going to overwhelm yourself. As much as I am a fan of education, I can't sit here and say I'm not. I am a proponent of education, but I am also a proponent of wisdom. And if you know you're working 2 jobs just to keep your lifestyle, and you don't really want anybody to suggest maybe your lifestyle is going to have to take a hit so that you don't have the stressors of trying to work 2 jobs and go to school. Gay people do it all the time. But when you hit 35 years of age, now I graduated at 34 going on 35. But understand, ladies and gentlemen, when you that old, and I'm 48 now, my son is 12. Right now I'm in contemplation mode about going back when he's a teenager, which would mean not starting in August, meaning start next year, going back for a master's degree when he's almost 14. But even with that, you're talking about working a full-time job, being, for all intents and purposes, a full-time dad. I have joint custody, but a full-time dad. You know, you're never not in that mode, right? Whatever you need to be, you can just snap of a finger. You're right where you need to be. And going to school and taking a full load, and we're talking about master's degree. So you're talking about the financial piece, and you're talking about the time piece. It sounds glorious. It sounds mythical. It sounds mystical. It sounds dreamy. I'll go back to school and I'll get this degree. And I will achieve it. I will make my mom proud. I'll make my dad, my grandmother proud. I promised them on their deathbed. And I will go and I will achieve these great heights. I'm not making fun of you. I'm speaking this way because that's how you're thinking about it. You're thinking about it and you don't want to hear reason. Again, pre-education advice or counsel. At least be willing to hear somebody challenge you in your thought process. Well, Gabe, I'm a grown man. What the world has that got to do with it? Because I'm a grown man. I'm a grown woman. Okay. I work with grown women. What does it got to do with it? What is your gender and your age got to do with wisdom? What does me being 48 years old got to do with wisdom? If I'm going to plot a course back into the educational arena with the hopes that when I come out on the other end, that might net me a couple of more dollars an hour, let's just be honest about it, then I've got to think long and hard about the impact, not just economically in terms of student loans, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to do it, but also the impact on my time. And seeing that I, at my age, have a child who is preteen going on teen here in less than 6 months, I've got to think about how much time am I going to steal from him? And if I try not to steal any time from him, in terms of him and I and our time spent together, that means I'm going to be doing some late nights and some early mornings. And for those who follow me on Facebook, you know that's gym time. And gym is not some leisure thing. I got to do gym. I got to work out. Let me say it that way, whether I go to the gym or not. I got to stay healthy. I have a medical condition. So I don't have a lot of room for error. I need pre-education counsel. And if I'm doing a broadcast about it, you probably assume that I've gotten some pre-education counsel. Yes, and I am a Christian. And yes, I pray to the Lord Jesus Christ about these things. I try to be obedient to scriptures that says things like, in all thy ways, acknowledge him, and he shall direct. Direct ain't just Gabe just come up with his own conclusion. No, it is, I anticipate him giving me wise counsel. Now, see, somebody just learned something right there. Stop this notion of, I prayed to the Lord and then did what I wanted to do. No, you pray to the Lord waiting for an answer. Well, Gabe, he ain't gave me an answer, so that must mean whatever I plan to do is what he wants me to do. Where you get that from? That's not biblical at all. That's anti-Bible, if you just want to be honest. So the reality of it is, even if you try to come with this whole religious piece, I got you covered there. I got you covered there. We have got to think about this reasonably. I know you don't like words like rationally. You don't like words like logically, because most of us want to be, again, we want to be mystified. We want to be emotional. We want to be moved emotionally. We want to prove something. Oh my God. And if you are a prove it type of person, I'm a prove it type of person. I can do it, Gabe. I can do all things. Here we go again. Through Christ that strengthens me. That ain't what that scripture is about. Stop using it. Stop using it. It's not what it's for. That's not what Paul meant, and you know it. If you've even read your Bible a little bit, you know that's not what Paul meant. How dare you take that out of context? That is not, I can do whatever I want, all things through Christ that strengthens me. The whole book of Proverbs is a book of wisdom. And in that book of Proverbs, it says wisdom is the principal thing, but it doesn't stop there. And so get wisdom. And with all of your getting, get an understanding. In other words, I'm not talking to God or the earth or the universe or whoever you pray to, just so I can come up with some willy-nilly, idealized, rationalized, self-rationalized plan. I didn't want to hear nothing outside of myself to help ground my decisions. We got another few weeks about engagement and marriage and employment. Next week, we're going to talk about pre-employment counseling. And you can see the natural progression from pre-education counseling to pre-employment counseling. I'm begging you, ladies and gentlemen, because I think we all know, unless we don't want to admit it, someone who will tell you they got a useless degree. Someone who will tell you that they got student loans from here on to the end of their life. They achieved their degree and everybody showed up and everybody got on Facebook and YouTube and TikTok and all Snapchat and all of them and Twitter and said congratulations and sent cards and showed up to the post-graduation party and you guys danced like it was 1999. Party like it's 1999. There you go. And in the final analysis, 2 years have come. 3 years have come. And I'm not trying to be mean, but the fact is, you're looking at them sideways because they're working a job that has nothing to do with that $30,000, $40,000 of education they achieved. And nobody wants to say it, but I'll say it. They got the degree, you applauded them, you said, I need to be like you. I need to be like you, girl. I need to be like you, man. I need to go back and get my education. And you watch them since they got that degree, and they are nowhere near using that degree in connection to their economics. And you might have been bold enough to even ask them, hey, man, hey, girl, let me ask you something. I don't mean to be rude. Like, are you going to like work a job? Because you got that degree, girl. If I had me a bachelor's, man, if I had me a master's degree, man, I'll make some money, man. I'll make some money. And then look at you. Some of them might be bold enough to tell you the truth. They didn't think it through. They got a degree that is proven to be useless. And they're second guessing now. And you're trying to encourage them. You tell them, don't second guess yourself. You knew what you was doing. You got your degree. And there's a lot of people out there who can't say that. My dad can't say that. But he worked and worked and worked and is buying his house and is taking care of himself and my mother. When I needed it, he was there for me financially, my sister, maybe even my brother. I don't know. My brother's been on his job 30 years. Now, my brother is actually pursuing education, going back to school. Kids are grown. As a matter of fact, my niece is about to literally be 32 years old. Grown. Nephew, what, 29? So they grown. The reality is my dad don't have a master's or bachelor's or AA degree, but he's paying for his house. He didn't get pre-education counsel. I don't even know if he got pre-employment counsel, but he found that job. But those jobs, and he had to go through a lot of garbage to be able to move up in that job he was on for 30 plus years, 35 years, I believe, to be able to make enough money. And even then, working 28 days in a row, 10, 12-hour shifts. See, even if you say the nursing field, okay, the nursing field, absolutely. Jobs, ladies and gentlemen, jobs, nursing field jobs. For sure, for sure, for sure. Matter of fact, I got a male nurse live across the street from me. He been living there longer than I've been living here. I get up to go to the gym sometimes at 3 something in the morning. His car is gone. Putting in their work. I know people doing 12-hour shifts, 6, 7 days a week, nursing. They're not RNs. He gave it, they go and get that RN. You might want to talk to some RNs and see what kind of hours they're putting in before you start talking about RNs and that education. I'm not knocking RNs. I'm not discouraged. I don't want to discourage anybody from pursuing that level of education. I'm just begging you. I'm pleading with you, and I'm done, to get some pre-education counseling, to look at the cost-benefit ratio. There it is. I've been trying to get it all night. Cost-benefit ratio. Find out if it's really going to be worth the effort. And if you, in the end, feel like it is, go for it. Go for it, man. Wholeheartedly. You're going to feel burnout. That's just the nature of it. You're going to get tired and second guess yourself. Hey, keep going. If you've done a cost-benefit analysis and you see that at the end of that educational tunnel, there's a job that can boost you up $5,000 a year or whatever the case may be, or you can completely leave the industry you're working with alone and really go work the kind of job you want to work. Are you kidding me? Go and get that education. See, I told you, I'm not anti-education. I'm sitting here telling you I'm strongly considering a master's degree. But you got to understand, I'm considering a master's degree to the tune, well, I ain't going to say, but I could see a significant jump in the kind of money I make right now, which is not a little bit, but I could see a significant jump if I pursue further education, especially if I go all the way to a licensed counselor. Oh, yeah. I'm practically doing the work now. I'm just not getting that pay. I'm still hourly. If you need to know what I mean, I'm hourly. I'm not salary. I'm hourly. I'm hourly. See, when I get to that salary, when I reach that pinnacle, when I'm making $40, $50 an hour, something like that, and I get my money, whether I show up or not, because I'm salary, now I got to show up. I got to put the work in. I don't show up, I don't get paid. Oh, nice job. And if I stay low, and I appreciate the job, but if I stay low, then my money look big. But if I step up, my money don't look so big. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. We're going to talk about pre-employment counseling next week. But I wanted to come here and more than anything, implore you, beg you. And I don't just mean, and let me digress a moment here. I don't just mean university. I'm talking about going into other forms of education. Going to cosmetology school, cool. But do you have a plan from the cost-benefit plan from going to cosmetology school to seeing if that cosmetology certification will lead you to making some money? If you don't have a plan, then what in the world are you going to go? Well, gave us for free. Yeah, but there's not just the money piece, it's the time piece. It's the peace of mind piece. Some of us don't think it through. We don't look at all of the pieces. I just want to change a career. Cool, I hear you. I feel you, got you. But understand, you got to weigh the cost in all aspects, not just student loans or whatever the case may be. You got to weigh the time piece. You got to weigh the sleep piece. Are you going to be able to sleep? I don't care if it's cosmetology. I don't care what it is. You want to go and get your CDL. That's a form of education. That's a form of training. I don't know how long that takes. I don't know much about it. Now, there's a lot of jobs. See what I just did right there? Cost benefit. There's a lot of jobs. There's people advertising right now for CDL licensed drivers. Now, as much as I like to drive, I don't want to be handling no big rigs. I don't want to be driving no school buses. I don't want to do it. Much love to the people who do it. Again, I'm not here to disparage, but if you can get that kind of training there and you want to do that kind of work, do it. Because I know here, I don't know where you live, but here, there, I pass it every day going to work. They advertise it's literally up the street from my office. Need CDL drivers. So hey, that's one. Go in and get that certificate. Get your training and come over here and get you a job. Nursing, get your LVNs, your CNAs and RNAs and DDCs and old elemental Ps and whatever other initials. You got a lot of initials in the nursing field. Go and get them. Go and get them initials behind your name or in front of your name or wherever you got to put them, because there's a lot of work. Now, some of those nursing positions, they're gonna work you. I ain't gonna say like a slave, but they're gonna work you a lot. Double shift, 12-hour shift. You got nursing homes that need you. You got all kind of retirement facilities. You got all, not just hospitals. There's all kind of places that need you. They need you. But depending on your level of certification and education, you might put in some serious hours. And there's nothing wrong with that if you weigh the cost benefit, you do the cost benefit analysis. So a part of your cost benefit analysis is advice, it's counsel. And I, once again, in conclusion, plead with you. I am literally begging you to get some advice from people who have walked through the path you walked through. Quick story, and I'm done. I told a couple of 18-year-olds, now 2 years ago, I asked them a question. I said, okay, you guys got your plan for what you want to do? And they kind of looked at each other. And I said, okay, do you have any, or you get any advice from people 25 and up? They looked at each other again and said, no. Now I so happen to know one of those person's mothers, one of those individuals' mother. So I said, are you getting any advice from somebody in their 40s? 46 at the time. No, and they knew exactly what I meant. I said, I'm gonna tell you this right now, your plan is gonna fail. You're not getting any advice from anyone who is older than you, who have been there and done that. Your plan is going to fail. Now, they're young. It's been a couple of years. Come next month, I believe, it's going to be a couple of years. I don't know what they're doing, how well they're doing, but I suspect that whatever they had in their minds 2 years ago is probably just still in their minds. It's still in their minds. If you really want to put some action behind your plan, your educational plan, and see it not only come to fruition and you get the cap and gown, I've been there. I've worn it. Ooh, I knew the feeling. But what about the day after? What about the day before the ceremony? Do you know what's coming next? What are you going to do with that certificate, with that degree? What are you going to do? Hang it up? Where? Put it in a box? Bury it, have it buried with you? What are you going to do? You got to get some pre-education advice. Now, for some of you, you knee deep in it already. You're knee deep in it. Okay. So if you're already into it, you're thinking, man, Gabe, why didn't you do this broadcast before? Because I'm doing it now because this is graduation season. My niece just graduated with a master's. Got another friend right on Facebook, just got her master's, if I'm not mistaken. Shout outs, shout outs. I ain't saying names, but shout outs to you ladies. Got your master's degrees. Now, I know these ladies to be highly productive individuals, my niece in particular, to be highly productive individuals, people who are given to working and doing what they need to do. But I also know people who got master's degrees. That's all I'm gonna say. They're not, I'll just put it this way, they're not doing anything with them. There it is. They're not doing anything with them. So take that or leave it. I'm done. Have a good night. Until next week, we'll be talking about pre-employment. I think that's going to be a big one, especially considering we're coming out of the pandemic. Well, it was officially announced the pandemic is over, but now we're seeing surge. I don't know. I can't keep track anymore. We're seeing resurgence, but then we're technically officially out of the pandemic here in the United States. Take it or leave it. But employment is a big one. I still get people making comments to me about lazy people and all of this kind of thing. We're not going to talk about that next week, but obviously employment is a big thing. So we need to talk about what kind of things you need to ask yourself. And if you want to know, Gabe, what kind of things should I ask the person who can help me with pre-education counsel, hit me up on Messenger. If you're on Facebook, go to my page on YouTube. Sorry about that. Go to my Victory in Christ broadcast page. I'll put that up real quick. So you can, if you're trying to find me, you can look for this logo and you'll be able to find me with that logo if you're not already following me on YouTube. But you can contact me. I believe you should be able to find me and you can comment and then I'll find you, if you will. Find me on Facebook, and then that's probably the easiest way that you can hit me on Messenger if you don't want to pass along, your contact information. That's cool. I get it. I have no problem with exchanging numbers and things like that. But if you don't want to do that, I get that as well. But let's chit chat. Let's chit chat and let's see. Now I'm sharing this comment because I think it's hilarious. And let me say, as it pops up on your screen, no, Miss Naomi, I don't quite know who you are, but I have never been told that I look like a woman, because I do believe Beyonce is a woman. So no, I can't say that I've ever been told I look like Beyonce, but there's an answer to your question. All right, everyone, have a good evening. We're actually out here a few minutes, actually more than a few minutes early, because I usually go over the hour. So I'll see you next week. Till then, have a good one.